This is my first time back in about a month and a half, so things are bound to go wrong. But this right here, this is episode 78, and I'm calling it Why Brilliant People Look Terrible on Camera, because it's very much one of those if you know type of things. You've probably seen podcasts or YouTube videos or been on a Zoom with people that are powerful or influential or geniuses in their fields, and they look like they're participating on a potato camera. Well, today you're going to find out how to fix all of that. My guest today is Neil Farrimond. Now, I first met Neil when I started hanging out in the eCam community, where he's a moderator and just an overall guru when it comes to all things live streaming. But what struck me immediately was not only his overall presence, but his terrifically calming personality. He immediately puts everybody at ease. And you're going to see what I mean in just a minute. But before he got into living this creative life, he spent 35 years designing enterprise level IT systems. You know, the kind of stuff where if you get it wrong, the business stops and then you're just in a world of hurt. But then he walked away from all of that and started doing something that on paper is the complete opposite. Neil now helps people who are genuinely excellent at what they do stop looking like amateurs the second that a camera turns on. Now, he and I have extremely similar career paths. I mean, we spent decades in IT, architecting systems, and then finding ourselves in the second half of our lives working in creativity and specifically video and live streaming. So the easy thing for me to do over the next hour is just kind of reminisce and compare resumes about all that stuff and gloss over the deeper philosophical approach to creativity. But I'm not going to do that because Neil's way too interesting. After doing all my research, behind the scenes, trying to find all those gotcha moments, what got me about Neil is that he says he saw the same thing in both of his careers, meaning brilliant people, world class at what they do, totally undermined by their own subpar setup. It's similar to what I've seen as a photographer with people doing themselves a disservice with really bad headshots. And we both found our niche in using the craftsman level skill set to help other people. But wait, there's more. He builds his own Mac apps and then he gives them away. He runs his whole business from a small village somewhere in Portugal. I'm not exactly sure where. And this guy's truly, like I said, one of the most interesting people I know. And so we're going to get into all of this stuff. I invite you to sit back and listen to a true expert in bringing the best possible version of yourself to your videos. So we're going to get started with my friend and the only person that has a voice that I'm honestly jealous of, Neil Farrimond. Ready? Here we go. Neil, my friend, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. What a amazing intro. I was thinking, who is he talking about? Right? I don't know who that guy is, but I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Your publicist sent me all the bullet points and I made sure that I covered every single one of them, right? I understand how this game works.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Claude, for doing it.
Exactly. Is Claude one of the new staff of your team in your large enterprise of one?
Yes. My large enterprise of one. Yeah, I don't know what I do without AI and Claude these days, but we'll probably get into that later. But to have one. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm the same way. He's doing a lot of things for me that take a lot of the pressure off my shoulders. But you know what? Let's start with you. Let's not talk about me. I covered a lot of the stuff. We talked about the fact that you've been in IT and tech for basically your entire career. And, like I said, I've done a lot of the same things. But one of the interesting things that I thought about is the switch over from one career to the other. But first and foremost, let's give people an idea of what types of things you were working on. What was the role you were in? Was it like IT code monkey? Were you sitting in a network closet somewhere? Were you architecting systems? Like what exactly were you doing?
It was a little bit of all of the above, actually. I started my IT career way back in the days before the interwebs, of course, working on these multi-drop Unix, Xenix systems, people are like, what is this stuff? Nobody really knows what that is. And then sort of worked my way up into working on PCs and things like that. So the types of projects I worked on was very varied. I've had a very varied career. It's all been around sort of network engineering and consulting. So that's either, as you said, building networks for classified systems or getting into the nitty-gritty of building these network frameworks, and troubleshooting were things that aren't working very well. So application troubleshooting was some of the last things that I used to work on. So they do a big deployment of a application system and then it breaks. Why is it broken? So send in the team, do some network troubleshooting, sniffer traces, packet traces, all that kind of fun stuff, and then do some analytics and then have to convey that complex technical messaging to a bunch of people that are in a room or on a Zoom call. And a lot of the time, it's a varied range of people. These people have different skill sets. So you have to sort of try and simplify and articulate some of the messaging back to those people to say, why is your system broken? I don't need to tell you your architecture isn't great, but there's something wrong and I'm here to fix it. And then I was brought in to do lots of sort of recovery projects that hadn't gone very well. So myself would go in and as the sort of the lead consultant and try and organize and structure the team that was already there to try and get the project back on track, both from a technical and from a sort of a delivery perspective. And I worked for anybody you can think of, from the big five, big pharma. I worked in classified government networks that I can't mention too much about, the military, the MOD over here in the UK and Europe and things like that. So it's been really interesting and very varied, but as you're fully aware with IT, also all-consuming. Can be long hours, lots of travel away from home, not fun in the best of times when people think, oh, you're traveling all the time. Great. No, not really. So yeah, it was time for a change, I think.
Yeah, typically when you travel in a job like that, it's never because they want to send you away to have a good time. It's always something broke at 2 a.m. and we need to send out the IT SWAT team somewhere. And, they've been living on caffeine and crack for the past, 6 weeks. So of course they're going to be awake, stimulants are a thing. So, it was that type of world that I remember. But it sounds like you were in a position where you were kind of bridging those two teams between the engineers and the executives. And that's always a no man's land of this could either go really well or really poorly in this DMZ of these two groups. And you're sitting squarely in the middle of it. Did you find that there was anything in translating between the two? Was there a common theme? Did people just talk over each other? Did they miss the point? Did they not understand? What did you find between these two groups? Because it really does tie into any type of client work.
I think, definitely there was a lot of talking over each other. Many people that I used to meet, mentioning no names, of course, had to be right. And that was difficult as well, to try and, be the voice of reason to say, look, I understand your frustration with this particular system, but it's not working for these reasons. And I'm here to try and help you. I'm always try to be, agnostic with regards to not taking any sides. At the end of the day, I'm being paid to help you fix something or get something back on track that's costing your business a lot of money. So, there are lots of interesting personalities working with. And it doesn't come easy to a junior consultant, as I was, because we all start somewhere, being thrown into the deep end and things like that. I do remember one quite not very nice story, but I was thrown into a project where I was working on a system with beta software. And we all know how that turns out, right? It's never the best. It was cutting edge at the time, right? It was cutting edge. They're trying to get things working. And I'm there in the data center. You know what data centers are like. They're cold, they're noisy, they're not very glamorous. You're sitting in a little chair. I'm plugging in my RJ45 Ethernet cables and working on code and things and uploading this latest patch. And this was for quite a large supermarket in the UK. And for whatever reason, this code that I put on broke the payment machines, the ATMs. Effectively, the scanning machines in the supermarket, things like that. So people couldn't take payments. So there were people physically in the supermarkets, at the checkouts, queuing, not being able to pay because there's something that I did based on some code that I was told to put on it would be fine. They did all the testing. And sometimes these things don't work.
Mhm.
So, this guy came in and said, I want to speak to somebody who knows what the bleep they're doing. And I felt like this big. And I'm, on my own, trying to pacify this guy who was very frustrated, understandably so. So it was, sometimes a little baptism by fire. You have to sort of breathe and take it in, and it's not the most pleasant experience, but it helped me understand people's personalities and how to help people and be calm with people, and not be irrational and so on. And, there's nothing like being in a firefighting environment where talking to people is the only thing you've got left.
Yeah, anybody that succeeds in a huge project like that, it's great. You can always talk about it. You can always pat yourself in the back. I decreased cost by 85%, or I increased, throughput by this amount or whatever. But it's the failures that actually teach us something. So I was going to ask, what did you learn from that? It sounds like you learned kind of that art of talking to people and just managing relationships and personalities.
Helping people, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to verify, I think, a lot of the time as well. Sometimes you put your faith in others who tell you one thing and it's not always the right path. And sometimes I was quite naive and I'd take people at their word and this is going to work. But, I should have done some more testing myself and so on. But sometimes you're under time constraints, budget constraints. You don't always get that.
Well, it's like live streaming, right? Something's going to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You do all the best things and then something is always going to go wrong. Case in point, the beginning of this, right? So, well, it happens. Live happens. So outside of that particular instance, is there anything that you got from the engineering side of the world that as you made a transition into creativity that you're like, oh, this translates perfectly and maybe I should just move my career over here? Was it a conscious decision? Was it like me where you were kind of voluntold that you were no longer going to have a job? Or did you consciously make the decision that, it's time for a big shift? I've done this for far too long.
Well, for me, I think I'm 56 now. So I was getting to a point where I was getting a little bit fed up with the work. And the company that I was working for, there was some rumblings that there could be some layoffs. And so I just put my hand up. I said, look, if there's anything that's going on, can you consider me for redundancy? I called it early retirement and redundancy. And at the time, my wife and I had just decided to move from the UK to Portugal. It was a decision where we wanted to change our quality of life a little bit. I was able to work a lot remotely, so that was good. And so was my wife at the time. She was also in IT, very similar career to me. And it was a decision where we wanted to just get away from the rat race and have a different sort of lifestyle. But that came with its challenges, which I'll probably talk about a little bit later. Being in the middle of Portugal and not having an internet connection when all your work is remote is a little bit challenging, to say the least. But so what happened was the decision came up that there was some redundancy and I decided to take it. So I had an idea that I wanted to get into doing the stuff that I love, which is the creative side of things. I've always been interested in filmmaking. Actually, one of the things that inspired me was Vincent Laforet's Reverie video back in 2008. I'm not sure if you remember that. He was a pioneer in making one of the first short films on the Canon 5D Mark II. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to have that film look. But, film cameras and things like that were way out budget. I started with a little Canon, to tape camcorder thing, handheld, family meetings and stuff like that. And I loved that idea. So when this came along, I was like, oh, maybe that's something I can do in the future. But anyway, so the redundancy came and I thought, well, maybe now it's time to sort of put my sort of passion or my career into a passion project that I really want to do and support. And I had a YouTube channel since 2017. And prior to that, I'd been on YouTube doing a retro gaming, like Sinclair Spectrum Commodore 64 type channel back in the 2000s. It was called Old Gold Tech. It's still out there, frighteningly enough. Only a few episodes, but that sort of show taught me how to light properly, get the exposure, camera settings, audio, all the things that you have to do to create a show. So it was always in the back of my mind that this is something I'm really interested in, something I'd love to do and continue doing. I'd always dabbled with video production and things. So that transition from me sort of coming out of IT world and being able to maybe teach or help people, not do the pitfalls that I did getting into video and getting them looking decent on camera and being able to present well. And that was sort of the idea behind it. But I didn't really sort of have a full business plan or something I could take from my IT career. I think the main thing was really the consultancy part, being able to have a little bit more confidence to speak to people and guide them through things. And that was probably, I think, my strength. And being able to sort of take complex technical things and make them more simplified for people so they could actually understand them and not get overwhelmed with all the tech, as we do, right? You see all this stuff, you see people like yourself with this amazing setup and how you sound and how you look in camera, and people go, I want some of that. Yeah. Well, that's too complicated for me. How do I do it? So.
I learned a lot in the same career path going from Fortune 50 into consulting, where you are immediately the expert and are looked to have all the answers, right? And at the same time, you're panicking inside a little bit, like, I hope I sound like I know what I'm talking about. But it does forge you in fire to be able to be on camera and speak clearly and present to people and get over those nerves. Not that the nerves ever go away, but you learn to deal with them. And so I gotta believe that once you got out of that and started getting into video, that when you turn your lens back towards the people that you were working with, right, the executives and the high-powered folks, that you realized that there's a way that you can help them. Is that pretty much the way that it went? Or was there a defining moment where someone showed up on camera and you were like, dude, you're killing me with all of this, right? Was there one particular instance? Yeah.
I think we were all sort of zoomed out with what happened with COVID, right? And it became very obvious very quickly that people weren't very comfortable with being on camera. Today I work with amazing speakers and keynote speakers and things like that who are great when they're on stage, when they're in the room, when they've got eye contact with people, where they're getting that sort of positive feedback. They can see people smiling or nodding their head and things like that. And then when you actually put them in front of a camera, it all changes. It's like, what is this? This is not fun. And then we're all, pushed into that arena when COVID came. So I was obviously, it was conference call. Zoom fatigue was a real thing. We talk about it. Yeah. I don't know if you remember, that was a big deal, right? We were on Zoom calls all the time.
100%.
And I loved the way that people used to book Zoom meetings back to back. There was no 5-minute gap. Couldn't even take a bio break. You were like, okay, I've just got to go now. I'm on another meeting. And it continues. And, I think maybe one defining moment was a hot summer's day in the UK when we're all on a sort of a big sort of powwow conference call. It was Zoom. It was during lockdown. And we were all getting ready. And you know what it's like when you join Zoom and you're not 100% familiar with the program. 9 times out of 10, your camera is on as soon as you join that Zoom call. Yeah. And there was a gentleman, I'm not going to say anything more about that, but there was a gentleman who basically was rather large in stature, let's say. It was a very hot day, so you can imagine it was hot and sweaty. He did not have a top on, and he was in front of his camera. Now, he obviously thought that camera was off. Joined the meeting, the big executives are there, and he was in quite a high position himself. And they just kicked off, and all the cameras came on, and he started speaking, and boom, he's front and center. And to me, it was like, oh my gosh, there has to be a better way. There has to be like a checklist. There has to be something that people will go through just to do some little checks and balances before they get on camera, just to prepare themselves. Even if it's just cleaning up the messy background or maybe adjusting a light. But, that for me was like, dude, we can't have this happen anymore. There has to be a better way. So not necessarily a defining moment, but one that will never leave my brain. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's the engineer side of you, right? We can do this better. I'm looking at this. We can do this better. We can do it more efficiently. So do you consider yourself now a creative person or an engineer, or kind of somewhere in the middle, which is like that systems engineer role, right? Where you're kind of got one foot in both sides. Do you consider yourself one or the other, or do you even think about it?
I don't really think about it, but I would say I'm quite well organized.
Yeah.
My wife will tell me that I'm a little bit, too organized in some respects, but I have to have structure and order in everything that I do when it comes to this. So I think from a efficiency perspective and a workflow, I've always been like that. But, I'm sort of very creative minded. I love music. So I learned, my nan taught me to play the piano best she could when I was 9. And I just grew up with my mum, my nan and my granddad until he passed away when I was 8. So it was a very small, northern community, not very much money and things. But I loved music. I was always around music, playing music, loved that. So I've always had that creative streak. And I wanted to go to audio engineering college. That was my passion back in the day. I wanted to be an audio engineer. So I guess, a little bit of engineering side with the creativity side. But money, other things, was not able to do that. So I ended up falling into electronic engineering, getting my degree, and then going to do the IT side, and the rest is history. So I would say, in answer to your question, so it's a very long-winded answer to the question, I would say 90% of me is creative, and I still have that 10% sort of engineering side. But I'm not a coder. I'm not like somebody who's deep into code and things. And obviously we'll come on to something later, but with the advent of AI and the way that has helped people, it's almost enabled a lot of people who are sort of stuck to actually be able to do something they weren't able to do before. So creativity first, engineering second, I guess.
You still doing anything with music? You still play?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I have a keyboard behind me and I play as much as I can. I love writing songs, producing songs. I used to be in a few bands. We played some not so great gigs, things like that over the years. I played drums as well, bass, a little bit of guitar. Just love the whole creative thing. So I'm always creating. And if I'm having a stressful day or something not working tech-wise, or, no customers are coming in, or whatever it might be, whatever the day-to-day issue is, I'll start to play a little bit of the piano. And it just takes me away completely. And I'm just in my sort of creative side of my brain then. And I still love that.
It's really interesting. Behind me somewhere, there's a guitar, and I do the same thing: guitar, bass, drums, all of those. And that polymath creative side, I think, runs through a lot of us that are now here on YouTube. It seems to be that mix of the left and right hemispheres of the brain all working together. And the folks that I speak to that are making a living being creative or tangentially creative, support systems, whatever, tend to have these other sides of them that balance out the hardcore tech, right? And it's great to hear that you do all that. Anything else? Any other art? Finger painting, macrame, anything else out there that we need to know about before we get into AI and all the good stuff?
I did some clay modeling when I was younger. My mum did have some little clay models of mine. She sadly passed away some time ago this year. But I don't know where those have gone. But yeah, that's what I used to do. But creative side of things, painting. I was a failed art student. I'm failed at that.
Fair enough. All right. So
they're tough.
So you go from corporate to now consulting to now realizing that you don't want to see big, fat, sweaty, naked men on camera on Zooms. And here comes a business that you can start to create by using all of your expertise in helping folks out. We don't have to cover all of that ground, but I know that it's manifested its way into Creative Cafe and Creative Amplifier and, building your own apps. So let's fast forward to where you are now and the things that you're helping people with. And rather than the tech side, right? Because people can learn about eCam and live streaming. They can go to YouTube University and learn a lot of this stuff. But it's the other side of it. It's the non-tech side that I think takes a lot of finesse and a lot of art to get right. So talk to me a little bit about how you work with your clients and get them to start looking and feeling and appearing better on camera or in their setup if they're not in front of the camera, behind the camera. How do you work with people like that?
A lot of the time, a lot of the people that I work with, the first thing they ask me is, I need a new camera. I need this. I need this. I need this. I need this. And I'm like, just wait a minute. And I always work backwards. That's always what I've done. I always ask people first, what are you actually trying to achieve? Let's say somebody wants to start a YouTube channel, for example. The first question I'll ask them is this going to be a business? Like a way, a funnel to show what you do from an expertise perspective, to bring people into your world, and then for them to buy something from you, either consultancy, workshops, or something like that? Or is it just a passive hobby? And that sort of, first of all, reframes what they're trying to do, I think. And I think it's really important to just be grounded and understand what you're trying to achieve with things. The people that I've worked with in the past have basically gone from being on stage, or they've been speakers on Zoom, and they're trying to then either create like workshops now. They're trying to build a business themselves, and they don't actually know like where to start, not just from a technical perspective, but what channel should I be on? Should I be on a channel? Should I, do all these things? Should I start a community? Should I build a library of videos and then start to push them out somewhere? And I'm not a social media strategist at all, but we've all been through, like, where do we start? What platform? And I always say, just start with one platform where your audience is, where is your customer base? So I work with them on understanding what their ideal client is. Who do you want to work with is really important. And where do those people feature? Where do they spend their time? And then the other side of the coin is, who do you not want to work with? Because I think that's very, very important. Because, and I've been guilty of this, when I started my business, I said yes to everybody, right? One, you've no idea who you're dealing with. A lot of people want a lot of stuff for nothing. I mean, I'm being, straight with you there. You've probably done this as well. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then, I pride myself in trying to give stuff away, first off, to help people. So there's no obligation and things like that. So I think it's important to sort of be true to yourself. And how I help my customers is just give them an understanding of really what do they want to achieve? Who do they want to sell to? Who do you want to work with? Who do you not want to work with? And then what type of things do you want to try and start presenting? And how do you want to do that? And then we get into I don't have this gear and stuff like that. So the idea is to make it as simple as possible for them. My philosophy is that I want to help build a system that's repeatable so they can just get online, create the videos, and get out. They don't need to learn everything about the programs that we love, like eCam or OBS or whatever. They don't need to know everything about it. They just need to know enough to do what they need to do and then move on, because time is so important for these people that they just don't have that learning capacity. And I think a lot of people now are moving away from online courses and watching hours and hours of YouTube videos because people don't have time for that. They'd rather pay maybe 1 or 2 hours of my time, your time, and work with somebody who's done this before, who's got an approach and a system and a workflow, just to get them set up and get them running. And I think that's the sort of important thing today. So that's primarily sort of how I work, but there's lots of other nuances. People just maybe want me to remote produce a podcast like we're doing today. They don't want to put people in scenes and build stuff. So, my friend Martin McKenna is an amazing designer. He designs all kinds of cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we use some of those profiles and things and get those done for people. So it's a mixed bag. It really is. But my advice to anybody who's starting, do not say yes to everybody. You will regret it. I did. And it's so empowering when you're running your own business, when you don't have to, talk to somebody and be accountable to somebody else, you can just say, no, I don't want to work with you for these. And you don't have to give a reason. It's your choice at the end of the day, right?
No's a complete sentence, is it not? I was watching one of Martin's videos earlier today, as a matter of fact, about resizing everything at once in Ecamm. And it's just, I love watching his stuff because it's just so brilliant from sunny Edinburgh. And he's just always so, so like flat and wonderfully witty, and he's a pleasure to watch, and he knows his stuff, and it's always well designed. I love Martin. So if you're looking up Martin McKenna, he's on YouTube, and he hangs out with Neil quite a bit. So there's so many threads in there that I want to tug on, but I guess one of the first ones is, the people that you work with. You got academics, and you've got financial planners, and you've got church leaders and educators and high-level executives. They're not creators. So why did you point yourself at people that didn't ask to be on camera in the first place? Like, why those people, and why not stay in the comfortable room of other creatives and help them improve?
I think because those are the people that need the most help in some respects. And, I've been there in terms of not knowing what I'm doing at all and having to learn stuff from scratch. And, just something I want people to take away from this is that I was so terrified of speaking, public speaking, being on camera, Zoom calls. I messed up a lot when I was younger. And the thing that helped me was to slow down, not to speak as fast, not to trip up, take some deep breaths, think about what you're doing. And I see a lot of that in the people that I'm working with who are not that confident on camera. And it's not about confidence. It's not that they don't have the confidence to speak about the topic. It's just that they don't really have that system and that sort of workflow in place, and that sort of like calming influence to help them get through what seems to be very overwhelming, but in reality, it's not that bad once you get used to it. So those people appeal to me because a lot of the people that I work with are helping others. Some of these people are, therapists who work for the first responders, which is, an incredibly difficult job. There are people that are paramedics, EMS technicians, things like that. I work with a lot of those people as well. And I seem to gravitate to people who also help other people. Mm-hmm. And that makes me feel great because I'm helping them as well. So it all sort of works in that area. I've worked with very unselfish people who are there to, put themselves out there to support other people. Yes, they're running businesses, but it's not all about just the take for them. And I think that's what gravitated me to those people. I think a lot of creators can get a lot of advice from what's out there already. And don't get me wrong, I've worked with people who are, I've got loads of tech set up and things. They just want a few tweaks and things like that. And Martin and I have been working with people in that sort of space as well, in sort of startups. And same with Mark and Lisa, who I work with on the Creative Amplifier side. That again, it's a different set of people. Mark's a musician, so he works in that space and helps people. And Lisa is in LA, and she's got a different sort of clientele who are now migrating from TV to online. So there's all sort of different mixed bag of people, but the people that I work with one-to-one are the people that obviously need the help, and they help others. And I think that's what gravitated me to them, I think.
I think one of the things that I've noticed in the corporate career, and then with this same group of people that you're talking about, and comes down to the confidence, right? They're unbelievably confident in the room, but as soon as that red light turns on, everything drains out of their face, and they don't know what to do with their hands, right? And there's just a lot of, we all try to be so self-aware, and we think that we can very easily show up on camera the same way we do in any room. But you've really called out this gap between being confident in the room and being confident on camera. So what does that look like from the outside? Like, what do you see when someone is confident in the room but not on camera? What is the thing that you're looking for?
I call it the authority gap. That's what, that's the term I use. It's not trademark, so people can feel free to steal it. But I think what I see is that, and you've hit the nail on the head there, a lot of it is they're standing up on stage and they're walking and they're free, and now you're in a room and you're constrained by the size of the room and you have to be in one position, and there's lights and there's cameras, and I see somebody going from being very articulate and confident to being quite shy and not knowing where to look and fumbling for their presentation notes and not knowing which slide to click on. And it's, it seems to be very easy when they're on stage and they've got a clicker and things like that. But when you've got this camera and now you've got to put your presentation here and you've got to look there, and do I need another scene? And it's quite a lot to deal with. And I think it's because there's multiple things to deal with during that time that they're presenting, especially if it's a workshop. Now add that to the fact that you're on Zoom. A lot of people do Zoom events. I think they're called events. They're not these meetings. So you don't see anybody in certain Zoom setups. So it's quite empty. You've got a Q&A tab, but there's nobody there. So there's no feedback. There's no positive feedback from anybody. So I've said to people many times, just put a little Post-it note just on your camera lens with a little smiley face and talk to them. Pretend you're talking to a friend. Pretend you're talking to somebody that you've spoken to many times. Pretend you're in a coffee shop, having a coffee. And if it's easier, sit back a little bit. And I do think posture has a lot to do with confidence as well. I heard a great tip from somebody once where when they're sitting down, for example, they'll sit on the edge of the seat and they'll put one leg in front of one leg in front of the other, and they'll lean forward a little bit. So you're leaning into the camera. You may have your elbow on your knee, and straight away I feel a little bit more authoritative. I'm getting closer to the camera. So there's lots of little silly techniques, sound silly, but when you start to practice them and so on, they really make a difference to how people feel. And it's about making people feel relaxed. There's nothing worse than hard doing this, sweating, and then you've got to think on your feet about what you do. And I think one of the things with consultancies, you probably were, is it's almost programmed into us that you've got to think on your feet. There's a question coming at you now. Okay, I've got to answer that articulately, and I've got to make it stick and make people understand. And that's something that I think that comes with practice, not necessarily that can be taught as well. But there's lots of techniques out there, I think.
There are. And, I see a lot of this in photography when I'm working with some clients as well, where just the simple act of posing them a little bit differently, right? The fact, knowing that whatever the camera sees it in 2 dimensions, right? The camera doesn't see in 3 dimensions, sees in 2 dimensions. So if you're leaning back from the camera, your body's going to be big and your head's going to look like a little tiny, popsicle stick, and vice versa, right? Because it's all about the plane of what the camera sees. And it's phenomenal when you do just lean someone forward or you turn them a little bit and make them appear more confident through no magic. It's just them, but you're just teaching them the skills that they didn't know they needed, which was lean forward a little bit, maybe bring your chin up a little bit. It's all this really subliminal body language that we use that as humans, right, the amygdala fires and we start to understand, is this person a threat or are they, someone that we can trust? All of that comes into play. And it's such, in my opinion, and I'd love to know how you feel about it, it's way more the skill of doing live streams and doing videos or doing reels from the front seat of your car, if that's the thing you do, that if you just know some of these little techniques, it can make everything so much better for you, because once you start to see what you produce, you're like, oh, that's the me that I wanted on camera. And it's repeating that over and over. I've got to believe that you see some people flip that switch after the first or second time, and then they realize it's not that hard. But there's a big difference between the soft skills and the tech skills. Tech skills you can learn anywhere. The soft skills, I think, are the harder things to master. What do you think about that?
Definitely. Soft skills are the biggest thing. That's one of the things we were taught in, I wouldn't say consultancy school, but one of the places when I started, we went on a 2-week consultancy sort of 101 to help people. And they said the soft skills are the most difficult to teach.
Yeah.
But we're going to do our best here. And you're right. Yeah, there is definitely light bulb moments when you see that change from somebody who's quite shy and not sort of very well prepared to then being, much better on camera. And it's just these incremental changes. And some people get it very, very quickly. Could be a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Or some people, it could be a few months before they find it. And they say, like, how can I don't want to go live. How do I practice? Well, you can go live to an unlisted YouTube video, for example. Everything is within your reach to be able to just watch yourself back. And it's the most uncomfortable thing, I think, in the world for people who haven't seen themselves on video before. It's like, wow, I look like that. I do that with my mouth. I sound like that. And you do become very self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way to get better is to understand what everybody else sees. If you remember back and still available today in Zoom and on Google Meet, there's a mirror switch.
Yeah.
So when you actually look on camera, your image is actually reversed. And that's because people are so familiar with how they look in the mirror.
Yeah.
So Zoom and everybody else decided, well, so it doesn't look as, strange to people when they first get on Zoom, seeing themselves in the right way where everybody else sees you, let's flip that so it looks just the same as you would look in the mirror. And that's this thing that people don't really back in the day, they didn't really sort of get. And then when you flip that switch over and say, well, actually, if you do this way, stuff isn't reversed. This is how you actually look to people. They go, oh, I'm not sure I like that. And it's a weird thing that people say. But I think recording yourself, playing it back, going live, unlisted, and just that repeatable sort of process of getting more confident and comfortable is the only way to sort of learn how to do this. But it does take time,
Yeah.
And as we said, some people can do it very quickly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a long time.
Well, everybody wants that quick path from A to B, right? They want to hit the easy button. They just want to be like, well, I've got all the gear. I just want to turn it on. And why do I not have 1 million followers already? Right. And everything takes a little bit of time. So have you ever watched yourself and then seen the exact thing that you charge people for to fix? Like, do you see some of those things in yourself from time to time?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, still, if I'm hurrying through a video and stuff like that, I love the process of editing. And I know there's a lot of people like Alec and stuff who will just, rehearse and then just do one take. And that's great for me. But my love is the storytelling, the creative process, not necessarily in like a 10-hour tutorial video, but I have made short documentaries in the past and things like that. So I love the editing process and things. Yeah. But I have definitely seen traits and things in myself. If I go back and look at some of my old videos, which are now unlisted, thankfully for everybody else, I didn't start doing tutorials straight away. I had a vlogging channel. My channel was all about vlogging. I used to set myself little challenges, film for 15 minutes of anything you can think of in your surroundings, and then go home, edit, and make a story out of it. And these little things help me, sort of try and see the editing process, how those stories are built, and just to see, again, learning about composition and framing and what you're actually, filming and things like that. So I started off with a small little Panasonic GH4 and did some vlogging videos, horrific stuff, I thought, oh, I'm never going to upload that. That's going in the digital bin, as it were. But yeah, I mean, we all still do these things. And the thing is, it's okay not to be 100% perfect, because in real life, we're not. But what I'm trying to do is get you over the hump of not even starting. And once you start, you'll love it. It can be a grind, and we all know YouTube is a grind, particularly now with some of the changes, it's even a bigger grind. But I think you've got to decide what you want to get out of the platform and what you're doing this for. And if you're doing it solely for the money and the engagement and the views and the vanity metrics, I'm maybe not the right person to come and talk to, but I would certainly help you look better on camera and get more confident.
And I think that's the thing, that the message that more people need to hear more often, which is it's going to take some time. It's going to suck at the beginning. But the great part is no one's watching either. So no one knows you exist. So get all that stuff out right now. Believe me, I'm in 6 years into this and still no one's watching. But it's just kind of like, hey, you do it anyway, because at one point it's just going to feel natural. And all those little things that you think are important just fall by the wayside. And then you start to realize that this can be a lot easier. The real you starts to come out. The performer goes away. The masks fall down. And now you're able to connect with people, the audience that you want, in a much different way. And I think what you do at the beginning of your consultancy with folks is so important by asking them those questions. The why. Why do you want to do this? Who do you want to be talking to? Because I think folks see the big YouTubers and the big influencers and they're like, I want what they have. They didn't start last week either. They probably started 15 years ago. Is it MKBHD, right? On YouTube. Does all this. He shows his original videos all the time. And he's like 12 or whatever he's, look at that point. Yeah, a little kid.
Amazing.
And so it takes time. So just kind of be gentle on yourself, right? So, all right, now let's switch gears a little bit. You're in Portugal. You mentioned before it's a little bit difficult. You're in a little village and internet. I can't imagine that you have gig fiber coming to your house. I'm guessing there's some technical challenges of being as remote as you are. I know I'm remote and I deal with it all the time, but I feel like you're in a completely different situation. How do you do what you do, like you were doing right now, from where you're located?
If you'd asked me that question about 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have said that I can't do live streaming.
Yeah.
It's not possible. So when I moved to Portugal, depending where you are, some of the villages are fibered up. They get gig fiber. It's amazing.
Wow.
These little rural villages, because Portugal is a very well-connected country. They do a lot of testing with different technology. They were the first people to get 4G and they did 5G testing, which is interesting. Yeah, for such a small country, there's only 10 million people in Portugal. There's more people in London than there is in Portugal, which is a bit of a weird thing to think about. But when I first moved here, we were promised, you're going to get, as they say, you will get the fiber. You'll get the fiber, no problem. And okay, great. So, 6 weeks in and moving here, there's no fiber. I'm a remote consultant doing work for all kinds of, highly paid customers. And I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? I ended up for 2 years using a 4G dongle hanging out of the top window of my house, pointing at the closest cell tower. And it was a case of, my wife was working as well. We couldn't both be on Zoom calls at the same time because the internet bandwidth wouldn't support that. So it's like, are you on Zoom now? Good, because I got to go on Zoom. So please don't turn on Netflix, heaven forbid. So, I think we had around 5 or 6 megabits per second in the day, dropping down to a whopping 1.2 megabits per second in the evening. So you can imagine watching Netflix and YouTube. I tried to live stream once using OBS. Sorry, 3 letters I can't use. And not a chance.
Yeah.
So it was my customer who I was working with. He said, have you heard of Starlink? I said, oh, what's that? And he said, it's an internet service from Elon Musk. I said, satellite? I said, oh, that's rubbish. That the latency is going to be a second at best. He said, no, this is low orbit. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what that is. So I looked it up. Anyway, long story short, I got Starlink, and I was one of the first people in the area, I think, in Portugal to get Starlink because it was in beta. It was not very good.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first bought it and set it up, I'll do the speed test. I was like, yeah, I'm doing the speed test. And it was about 3 megabits per second download. I'm like, what is this crap that I bought? It does not work. But unbeknownst to me, it takes 24 hours to bed in. It's following satellites. It's amazing technology. Not to bore everybody, but I looked it up. It was great. Anyway, life-changing. I could not do what I do without Starlink. And I've had Starlink ever since. I had a few iterations. We had a hurricane at the beginning of the year. Starlink dish was somewhere down the road. Had a replacement. The perils aside, It's been great. And, 90% of the time, I know I'm going to say this now, it's going to go,
Right.
90% of the time it works fine. And I'm getting, 300, 400 megabits down, 50 up. And it's the upload speed you need for the live streams, as you know. And it's been great. So I can remote produce people, support people, get on Zoom calls, work with your lovely self, things like that. So Starlink is the way forward. And without it, we still don't have fiber. 5G is just on the fringe. If I put my phone outside, it's like maybe half an hour of 5G. It's not enough. So I can't even use Speedify as a backup or anything like that. So Starlink is the way.
Yeah, we had the same thing here in rural Maine. I had DSL for years. So I've been in this house now for 10 years, right? And I had DSL for like the first 5 years of it, and it was miserable. And if you watch the early episodes of Generator, I was on basically DSL at that point, and it looks like it. It's very much harkens the day of get off the phone. I got to get my email, and just dial-up modem is what it looked like. And then I did the same thing, found out about Starlink, worked great for a while, and then they finally offered fiber last year. So waited 10, 12 years for it. And then I was just all on board. And I'm like, I don't care how much I have to pay, but I keep the Starlink as a backup because you never know. So that's really interesting. I was wondering how you did that. I wonder if it was Starlink or if you had some really strange cellular link up going on and you just hacked the planet.
No, it's Starlink.
Yeah.
I have a backup Starlink as well, like a roaming where you don't have to pay for it. I think you pay €4 a month just to keep it ticking over.
Yep.
And, because we have power outages and all kinds of stuff here. So I could just go in the car and start my stream. Not that that's good. That would be good. How do you set up a studio in a car? Maybe there's a video in there somewhere.
I'm sure there are people that are doing it. And I'd like to find that because I'd love to live that van life at some point and kind of drive around and see the country. All right. Now, a couple more things. You got into working, like you said, with Martin and with groups of other folks, and now you're expanding into really the group dynamic of consultancy, if you will, where you're linking up with other creators, and now it's like this hall of justice, this league of superheroes coming together and helping people online. I watch it, and you guys have such a great time. Linking up with fellow creatives like that, have you noticed a difference in your own production, in your own creativity by now being part of this hive mind? What has it improved for you?
I think it's safety in numbers, a lot of it. Like you mentioned, it's quite soul destroying going live. When I first started going live as well, I don't have a big following or a big audience, don't get me wrong, but having a following of 0 when you're live streaming is pretty soul destroying. And having to talk for maybe 15 to 20 minutes, knowing that there's a big 0 at the end of that little Ecamm button that says there's nobody watching. We're not going to talk anyway. I always say to people, it doesn't matter. It's content. It's evergreen content that lives on YouTube that could be searchable in the future and start to gain views and traction and things like that. So it's not the end of the world. I met Mark and Lisa and Martin at Ecamm's Creator Camp, the first one, actually, in Boston in 2023. So I just sort of retired, semi-retired, going into this stuff. And then I got into Ecamm because I watched Alec Johnson's channel. I was one of the first guests on Alex's channel. He's deleted that now because it was a mess because I didn't understand the 20-second latency between getting on a call and seeing yourself on YouTube is not you in real time, which is a bit weird when you've first done that. So that was a bit fun. So learning that pretty quickly. I met Lisa and Mark, who are my Creative Amplifiers co-hosts. We had some fun where we used to create a show where we bring on like-minded creators, the Ecamm fam, if you like, to showcase what they do. It wasn't a show about us. We just liked hanging out together. So we thought, well, let's bring other people on. I met Martin at Creator Camp as well, but he couldn't join Creator Camp. He actually got COVID just before he was due to go. So I met him the night before. He didn't get it from me. Yeah. I don't know where he got it from. Yeah. Well, maybe I just split it and gave it to everybody in Creator Camp.
Patience here.
But I think that's right. Well, sharing is caring. And I ended up meeting Mark and Lisa at Creator Camp and Martin as well. And then we just forged these relationships. And then you meet other people. It's like, I've seen you on camera. And it was a bit weird actually going to Creator Camp for the first time because you followed these people for a long time. So you got Alec Johnson, you got Doc, you've got Laurie Petrucci, you've got, all these other people that you've seen online.
Sure.
You think, it's a little bit starstruck.
Sure.
Right? And I went there on my own. I had no idea who these people were or what to expect, but you quickly make friends and you hang out. And we just decided to create a show together. We still liked each other 2 days later after a few drinks of wine and beer. And it's like, okay, let's go and create a show. And that's sort of taken off and we're still doing stuff together. And then with Martin, the same thing. And then we get other people who we talk to, like the guys at Stream Alive that we have relationships with. And Saeed, who's, a wonderful human being. He's a facilitator, but he's firmly in the Windows OBS camp. But we're all friends here. It doesn't matter. And I've actually said to many people that about all the conferences I've been to in the past, the Ecamm Creator Camp was the most, unassuming, laid back, relaxed, no ego time there, which is completely unlike a sales kickoff meeting or a technical meeting that you go to in the corporate world. You know what that's like.
I do.
And it's a completely different atmosphere. And that's why I love this creative community that we have. Because everybody's so chilled, everybody's so nice and willing to help each other. And I think we can all learn from each other. And if we can also help other creators out by getting together and, forming these relationships and being on shows, I actually prefer being with a co-host or co-hosts during the show because it's easy to sort of bounce ideas off and you're not thinking everything yourself. You're not coming up with all the ideas. I don't mind doing that. I still love doing tutorials and things, but it's nicer when you're live with other people.
Hands down. It's why I do interviews, right? Because when I do talking head stuff by myself, I did a live stream last week that was just me. And I talked for an hour straight. And I realized I don't remember half the things I said because I'm just trying to keep people engaged and just the words are coming out of my mouth. And I don't know if it was coherent or not, but I know that when I'm there with someone, I'm much more present and it allows me to just kind of really be in the conversation with those folks that I'm in the room with. And I had the same experience at Creator Camp after years of conferences and years of all the corporate rah-rah meetings and all that sort of vanity stuff, that the humility that I find in this creative world is fascinating to me. Because when you see so much of internet culture being vanity metrics and gaining clout and all of that, and then you're in a room with people that are genuine, like you have no idea who they are, but they genuinely have 500,000, 1 million followers. And they're facing the same exact thing that someone that just learned how to use Zoom last week is facing. It takes a lot of the apprehension away. And hands down, Creator Camp last year was the first time that I'd ever gotten into it. And you've seen me, I'm a rabid dog with this stuff, right? I had no idea what I was walking into. And I had no standing in any of this community. And I realized that I found my tribe because we all just want to improve, regardless of whether you're a lawyer or a doctor or a puppet maker or a paper folder. Everybody's there bonded by the fact that we're all trying to learn how to communicate and connect with people a little bit differently. And it was absolutely magical. And it's great to hear that. I had no idea that was the backstory behind all of you, that you all kind of met at Creator Camp and did this. So it's, again, for people that are out there, if you're thinking about this, these are the secondary and tertiary effects of getting into something like this, starting to meet new people. And, I know I don't touch grass enough. I'm probably in this little square room far too long during the day, but when you're able to get out and meet people that do the same sort of thing, your creativity meter goes off the charts. So, all right, as we start to land this plane, I'm conscious of your time. You spent a lot of time with me. It's late in Portugal, I'm sure. But a handful more questions. So you noticed, I noticed a couple of things you were saying about working alone and then working with people. Were there parts of your personality that you had to I don't want to say arrest, but keep under control. I know for me, I've been working by myself at home since 2000. So 26 years, I haven't worked in an office. And that freaks me out considering that it may happen to be a thing some point down the line. I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. How do you feel as someone that does work so individually, now working with a team of people? Do you feel pretty aligned? Does it feel natural? Did you fall back into your old habits? Like, how did that all feel? Was it a jarring move?
It was. Don't get me wrong. I like working by myself as well, especially when I've got specific tutorials to do and things like that. But working with others in a team is what I really enjoy as well, because my background has always been working with some other people, unless it's like in that lonely data center being slapped for things wrong. But most of the time, it's either working with somebody or a small team, and I really enjoy that. I'm not somebody who craves to go out and meet people all the time, and I'm also not the type of person that doesn't want to go out and meet people. But I think this creative community is so, what's the word? Not loving, but they're just really forgiving for what you do and so on. And they're just, just come and talk to us and let's just sit down and work together. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think I would want to go back into the corporate IT world and sit around a boardroom or whatever it is and work in a team like that again. It's not the industry for me anymore.
Right.
So that's really changed for me. I don't relish the fact of ever wanted to do that, and touch wood, I really don't want to. So working in this community, in this creative space is I think where I found more relationships and where I'm more comfortable. And I think you have to be comfortable in what you do day to day, because if it becomes, I know everybody says this, but if your passion and what you love becomes a job, that's what it ends up being. Mm-hmm. And then you'll start to resent it. And then it just becomes another, I've got to do this now. And I never want to be in that position. And I encourage others who maybe, if they feel that they're getting into that mindset, take a step back, go out, ride a bike, see the sun, do something else, but don't beat yourself up that it is a job. I mean, yes, we've all got to make a living. We've all got to do these things. But I think if it becomes that grind again, those are the warning signs. Yeah. We're all getting a little bit too old for this nonsense. So I think it's time to take a step back.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I've been going through this bit of a transition over the past 6 or 7 months myself, and thinking about, all right, I've been doing, I get that 7, 8 year itch where, I've got to change my career or blow up my life in some way, shape, or form, right? And with the photography and videography and education and doing stuff in AI, which I really do want to touch on, doing all of that, it started to feel at first like, I love this. This is a new hobby. I can put all my energy into it. And then it starts to become, well, I've got to put out 3 videos this week, and then I have to cut up those videos and put them on social channels. And that part started to feel like a grind. And so I find myself now thinking through, what are the next steps? How do I re-inject some of that love for what I do back into it? And what it really comes down to is, for me anyway, and I've talked to some other people where it might resonate with them as well, is you're trying to do too much at once and you lose sight of the thing that made you feel good about doing this in the first place. I know that if I don't have a camera in my hand every day in one way, shape, or form, something feels off. But if I go for a long period of not taking still photos or not having clients there, I start to really get anxious and not feel good, because I'm so aligned with that when I'm not doing it, it feels odd. So yeah, I think it's, we all want to do all the things all the time, but stay conscious of the thing that feels right to you. And because that's your body telling you, this is what you're meant to do. This is, whether it's helping people or fixing things or making balloon animals, it doesn't matter. If it's aligned with you, that's the right thing to do. So, I've heard musician, engineer, architect, generally good guy. Do all those people live in the same room Or do you have to consciously kind of separate out when you find yourself in one situation or another? Do you allow them all to talk to each other, and do they all come out at the same time? Or do you have like, the public Neil and then the online Neil and then the, oh my God, wife, I cannot stand any of these people, but I'm trapped here in Portugal and I have to do it anyway. Like, where do you sit with all of that?
I think I'm pretty much the same person across all of it. My multiple personality disorder, it does kick in sometimes. You do have to have different hats, I have to say. It is an interesting thing that you mentioned. I'm a bit like yourself, though. I get a little bit anxious if I'm not doing what I love, which is either making videos, and then I don't make videos for a while. I'm like thinking, why have I not made videos, and so on. So I think I'm pretty much the same person in that, and I think what I'm good at is focusing on a particular task and seeing it through to the end. Not the same when it comes to writing music and songs. I've got about 300 songs that I haven't finished yet. I'm trying to find that difficult first album. It's going to take me a while. It's taken me 30 years. Maybe I'll get it finished. Anyway, music aside, I think in terms of just normal tasks, whether it be a project that I've got to do for maybe somebody sent me a piece of gear that they want to review in exchange for a video, things like that. That's something that is a trap as well. I did mention that don't say yes to everybody as well about that, because you then overcommit. And I've done that. I'm like, I've got 6 videos to do on products that I'm not that interested in. I don't know why I said yes in the first place. Now I've got to do them.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff I do now is because I thoroughly enjoy the product and so on. So I'm quite good at committing to that, but I also get a little bit anxious if there are deadlines coming up and I haven't properly prepared for them, because either something with family or a project's come up with a customer. I take second place to customers because that's the thing that brings the money in.
Sure.
Not having that sort of team available to then, or you can just edit those videos for me and I'll focus on this thing. So you do have to be very structured, I think. But I wear all the same hats. I think I'm most the same people. I can be very grumpy. That's my wife. At certain periods of time where I'm just not getting stuff done and quite impatient with things. And one of the worst things for me, I think, is when technology doesn't do what it's supposed to do, because I've been down that road so many times in troubleshooting. I'm like, why now? Why does it not work for me now? What is wrong? Those types of things. So there's lots of discipline I think you have to have in this industry, and especially being a solopreneur, because you have to do everything.
Yeah.
Right? Marketing, sales, cold calling, cold outreach. It's
why we both
have a show on that at some point.
We both hired the same guy, Claude, right? So he's helping me.
What is your friend?
And
he does everything.
And this is where I got really jazzed about talking to you, because when I started building things, like for real building things, not like, oh my God, it wrote an email for me. But now I'm, building my own apps and, your eCam profile backup, your live captions, right? You've got all these apps that you're building. Now, I don't know which ones had the help of a coding agent or if you're doing all this stuff yourself, but how have you found that process? Does it keep you connected with that IT engineering side of yourself and that fulfills that, it scratches that itch? Or are you seeing gaps and you're like, well, I know how to solve this. Let me go forward and just, fill that gap. What's the driving motivation there?
The first part is the gap filling. So I started, my first ever thing that I made was a Stream Deck MIDI controller for the Rodecaster. My Rodecaster was way over there. And I just wanted to be able to press mute on my Stream Deck. Like, why have they not built this? And there was, just to this day, there isn't one. More on that in a minute. And that's the first thing that I built, because it was a gap. And it's like, I need to be able to build this. And I understand MIDI because that's the music interface. And Rodecaster had it built in. There was a little plug-in on the Stream Deck. How can I get this working? Way before the days of AI. Lots of to-in and fro-in, bashing my head against a wall, meticulously going through, MIDI programs on the Mac, looking at the numbers.
What channel?
What channel's that? How does it fit? Yeah, and then, and nothing was published. So I, made a PDF and published it. Sold a few on Buy Me a Coffee and things. And yeah, that was great. That was my first foray into that. And it was a gap that in my workflow that I thought I need to fill. And then subsequently, other things have come up. Like, again, before the days of AI, there was a couple of other apps that I made around a simple thing, streamed out button to remove all the icons from your desktop when you're sharing your screen. I mean, I know it sounds simple, but, and then screen display settings, all those kinds of things. So it was a real gap in my workflow that was identified first. And that's where most of this stuff comes from. It's not like, what can I make today? And it's not that at all. It's only if it helps other people, and I can potentially sell it as well and give stuff away for free. And there's a balance. If I've put a lot of effort and time and work into it and spent weeks, then I think it's only fair if somebody pays me for that app. So in answer to your question, I've been now scratching that sort of developer itch that I never knew I had because I'm not a developer. So I've got my arms around Claude Code, who's been my friend for many years. Well, I say years, but probably about 9 months now I've been playing with Claude. And as you know, things are getting much easier. This vibe coding thing that was going on. I was like, what's that? I'm not doing that. But then again, there was something that I was working on. I recently wouldn't it be nice if we were on a live stream and people could see captions? There must be an app for that somewhere. And it turns out there are a few free plugins, but they basically had like massive blocks of text that sort of took up this much space, and like you can't position them anywhere. So can I make something nicer and fun? And so, I don't know anything about the audio workflows inside a Mac or anything like that. I understand a little bit. Can I do this? So, you start to do a little bit of vibe coding, asking Claude those questions. Can it be done? It's like, oh, you can do this? And then, certain things happen and you start to add more things to it. So I decided to build this app all around live captioning for live streams. And yes, you can watch on YouTube after the fact and put YouTube's captions in and that. But I thought, wouldn't it be nice for people who maybe can't see or can't hear properly, or have accessibility issues, or can't have the live stream volume up for whatever reason, and you can still enjoy the show by seeing both people. So I created this app where, you and I could be speaking now and captions appear under me, captions appear under you, they're color-coded, you've got your little icon, all kinds of things. And then it just transpires to that. You think, what else can I add to this? So long story short, I've done and created that app, and now I've got things like trigger words. So I just switched to another scene. It's just should be the same. So now you can, if the captions are coming up, they're probably at the bottom and you can't see them. But I've got captions coming up on here. There you go. And then you can see stuff like that. I've got trigger words. Can you see my screen and all that kind of stuff, and bingo and all kinds of things pop up. So it's fun to have.
I'm seeing them on the other screen.
Yeah. So it's fun. So I've got these trigger words, like BS bingo and things like that. And I've just added lots of different things now. So what I want to do is just expand that with making more apps. But it was a gap that I thought maybe it's there, maybe I could sell that. And so lots of ideas, lots of things. And the Ecamm Profile Manager was one. Thank you for buying it today. I did send you an email with an update because there's a few iterations and updates. And it's only because Ecamm doesn't have... they have in the alpha something, but it's still not a fully fledged program for sort of basically backing up and modifying and deleting files. And there's so many files on your Ecamm profiles directory and the assets directory, which is hidden. It's like very interesting. So anyway, again, a gap. Thought, I need to get this for me. Maybe somebody else would be interested in it. And that's how it works.
And if you're hearing anything, because I know you're an audio guy, if you're hearing anything in the background, I have a metal roof and I'm expecting Noah to float by at any moment because the skies and heavens just opened up. So if you happen to hear anything, this is what's going on.
No problem.
So thankfully I'm not using Starlink anymore. I think, I approach coding the same way. Not a coder, not a developer. I think the last time I wrote any program, it was in like Pascal in probably 1986. So it was a long time ago. And being able to understand that there are these gaps, and then let me see if I can fill it. And there's probably a million other apps out there, but there's something so satisfying about building it for yourself. And then you get to the point where you're like, well, maybe other people will enjoy this as well. And, when you can recognize those gaps in your own community and try to help out, I think that's part of that service thread that we both have in us, where we want to help people out. We hear questions in our groups all the time. How do you do this? And how do you do this? And once you hear it for the 107th time, you're like, maybe we should address this and, put something out. I love what you're doing. And yeah, the Ecamm profile manager. Yes, I did buy it today. I didn't realize that I didn't have it, but I've been having some issues with my profiles. And I said, before I blow up and nuke and pave my entire setup, let me get something that's going to help me out and, give me the Department of Redundancy department. And so I can actually store my stuff and then blow things up and then restore it if I need to. So
Good.
I love that. And I took the same approach with the voice activation for teleprompters and, all of these
teleprompters.
Yeah, it all opens up, it's like you said, beta software. It's going to be buggy. I'm not a developer. Here it is for free. If it works, if great. If it doesn't, then, blame me. It's fine. I think, as creatives, we're in this world of AI now, and sure, we can build tools and help people, but there is such the debate about using AI in the creative world. And just recently, I heard someone make the distinction between generative and assistive AI, and that they, very much like myself, am against generative AI, but assistive AI has been around forever. Spell checking, whatever it might be, has been around forever. What are you seeing in your circles around use of AI for creation of, let's say, in this example, graphics for overlays or for script writing or for show organization? Are you seeing it benefit people, or are you seeing them get bogged down by AI and then, starting to advocate against it? What are you seeing?
I mean, I see all of the above, right? So I think for show outlines, research, emails, there's a lot to be said for cutting down the amount of time you take for doing this stuff using AI. So the assistive side definitely is something that I use every day. I have email sequences for my apps. I use AI to help me build my websites and do testing and all kinds of things. So without that, I couldn't do it. I can't afford to pay somebody to do that. And the abuse I give Claude, nobody put up with that. So I have to do my best and talk to Claude in a nice way, because they will come for you at one point and destroy you. So you have to be very careful what you say. But the generative side, I think, I don't use AI to create any video or anything like that. Most of my stuff is either captioning, some overlay graphics, some PNGs or PDF files or infographics and things like that. But the problem is that a lot of people are using it incorrectly. And I'm sure you spoke about this before with others, about the context behind what you are as a business and what AI does for you. And you're getting bogged down now, especially if you look at LinkedIn and other platforms, where there's a lot of very samey looking graphics that are out there. And you think, okay, that's AI. I use it to help me with my writing. Hands up. And that's the way it is. I'm not the best writer in the world. And it helps me create, it's my ideas, it's my thoughts, it's my notes, but it's put into a more cohesive, digestible way. And it can write better than me. And, I notice you're on Substack, and Substack recently has got this thing now where before you do a post, it says, just check whether it decides how much is AI written and how much is human written. And it's very interesting. So there's a lot more AI detection out there. It's never going to replace, I say this now, watch me prove to be wrong.
Remember, be nice. They're listening. Be nice.
It's not going to replace this.
Yeah.
This conversation that we're having today. Real people talking about real topics our experiences, connections with others, and what we've done over the years. It's not going to replace that. Now, how it's presented, maybe with some captions, maybe with some cool graphics, maybe with some cool music, all generated by AI. No problem with that at all. I do think it becomes a problem when it's all AI and there's no soul behind what you're creating. If people are just creating content for the sake of getting likes, views, and monetization, then it needs to be removed because it's not helping the world in any way. It's just for pure slog. So I think there's a fine line between how it's used and the volume by which you see this content being generated. I know in the photography space, you know, people say, yeah, just throw a photograph in there now. It'll do depth mapping, it's going to color correct everything for you. And it can help, of course. You know, and I know Photoshop and all these programs have got really cool tools to help you, but that vision still comes from you. You know what you want in that photograph. And you're not allowing AI to run amok with your art.
Agreed.
That's where it becomes a problem.
You know, there's a big knee-jerk reaction, especially in the photography circles, about using assistive editing tools, right? And I'm not even talking Photoshop. There's some out there, Evoto and Imagine AI and all these sorts of photo processing applications that, you know, you literally click one button and it cleans everything up. And to a degree, great, saves you a ton of time, right? In post-processing and culling and doing, especially when you're doing large volume. I'm shooting thousands of photos, and then having some assistance with that is fine. I think when you get to the editing part, if you're giving everything up to a one-button touch and you're taking yourself out of the equation, it starts to feel kind of hinky. And as long as I can maintain granular level, molecular level control over what's happening, I have no problem with it. Because to me, it's just like any other tool. It's a power saw versus a hand saw. But you've got to be able to wield it the right way and understand what it is that you're doing. There's been such a knee-jerk reaction in the photo world against anything AI. I get it as someone that makes their living being a creative. But at the same time, we had this conversation when we went from film to digital, and we went from painting to film, and we went from charcoal to paints, right? I think there's always going to be that conversation that happens. And I'm not out here saying everybody's got to use AI and you have to adapt to it, because the robots, as nice as they are, as long as you keep your head about you and you use it in a way that feels ethical and aligned to you, then I think that says more about you than anything else. If you're using it to get over on people, it's the same thing as anything else. If you're going to be a con man or you're going to misrepresent yourself, that's where, I wrote articles about this, because if you are not being genuine with it, then, people are just going to call you out on it. And it's an interesting fact now that more people assume that something is created by AI than created by a human. And it's an interesting space that we're in right now, especially as visual artists that are making things that people immediately say, well, that's AI. No, I just know what I'm doing, and I know how to manipulate these tools and cameras and whatnot. So yeah, it's a really interesting, I ask everybody these types of questions just because I think the conversation needs to happen more. And I think people need to be exposed to, what different people think. And maybe it does and does not apply. Really, I think it's.
I think that just your point. I can hear a little bit of that. But just your point. I think when people start to assume everything is AI that you create, it's almost devaluing you as a professional in what you do, because it's like, well, okay, that looks like AI, so I can do that. And I'm of the philosophy of go ahead and try and do this as good as what Matt does or what other people do. Just try it. And see how easy it really is. And, 9 times out of 10, it's not the case because they don't know what they're doing or how to use that. But people can be quite pithy now with these remarks when it comes to AI. And that's a problem, though, because let's have this conversation maybe in a couple of years' time and say, do you remember that silly conversation we had where we said everything was going to be AI? Well, look at it, everything is AI and it's great and we're not even here. But who knows what's going to happen? I think, you and I have both gone through the tech revolutions and the internets and everything, the interwebs, as I like to call it. This has been the fastest accelerating point in terms of technology that I've ever seen. Nothing has gone from like, what's AI to everybody's using it in 18 months. And if it's that fast now, and we're getting to the point where compute power and data centers have been built everywhere, and that's a completely other topic of conversation, not necessarily a good conversation, and things are getting so much quicker and more powerful, then where are we going to be in, a year's time from now? For the first time in a couple of years ago or 18 months ago, real quick, I used Auphonic, which is a great audio cleanup tool, all AI. Uses some great, and I thought, I used, Adobe equivalent at one point and did a comparison actually on my channel, which one was the best to use. And back then, and still now, Auphonic is the best, but it saved so many bad audio from stuff that clients have sent me. My friend Mark, Creative Amplifiers, recorded one of his conversations using the camera mic by mistake. You can't get round that. You're done. The podcast is done. It's ready to go up. He's being paid for this. So I helped him out and we got it to sound pretty much like a mic like this. There's no way I could have EQ'd that myself in Logic Pro and messed around with it. So there are definite uses for it. It's just a bit scary how fast it's moving and where it's going to be. And I think that's the thing that we need to keep a hold on, where it doesn't take over everything. It should be used in an assistive role and generative where necessary, but it shouldn't be all generative, nothing else.
I think there's a lot in what you just said, which is an entirely separate episode. But I think that's why, I know in my case, why I'm so passionate about AI is because I want to demystify it for people. I don't want it to be the big scary thing, and I don't want it to be the panacea that solves all their problems. I want to teach them how to use it so that they can make the judgment for themselves and integrate it in whatever way they can. So before my house washes away in whatever deluge is coming my way, I'm hoping to see a tsunami at some point here at 1,000 feet above sea level.
Let's hope not.
We're going to kind of wrap this up. There's a couple of things that you were saying in there about being scared of AI, being scared of technology. If someone is listening right now who's really good at their work, but freezes when they get in front of a camera, forget about the gear at all. What is it that you want them to know in the context of everything we've talked about? What's the one or two things that they really need to know to get over that hump and start doing this in a way that might be able to help them?
That's a good question. I guess the first thing I would say is that you're not alone. Everybody else has started in the same position. Your peers, people more experienced than you now, have always started from this. I would say that it's not something that you have to get right straight away. You don't have to be perfect. People love the vulnerability, the flaws in what you're doing. And I think you've got to just practice, be kind to yourself. Don't be so critical that you end up watching what you're doing and then putting it away and not doing it because you don't think that you're good enough. And what I always say to people is that you just take a step back and maybe just get your phone and start talking to your phone and recording yourself on that and just get familiar with how you look on the camera. But it's not something you have to get right first time. And it could take time. And that's why we, as a community, are here to help you with any aspect of that. I guess I was going to go into the gear thing then, just saying that, the most important thing is the audio component of anything that you do. If you want to actually have a message, doesn't matter how crap your video is or the lighting, but the audio has to work. The other thing I would say is that nowadays there's little excuse for not looking as good as you can on camera, because everything is so cheap now. A lot of the time it was unaffordable, right? It was out of people's reach. So I do think that there's a lot of videos out there that really push that, like, you've got to have the best gear, you've got to have this. No, you can be comfortable in your surroundings, and just learn to sort of be kind to yourself, breathe, drink water, take your time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I know that's used a lot, but it is. You know, you don't have to get everything right first time. Just trying to think of other things I say, but that's pretty much what I would sort of start with. And yeah, don't live in a tin-roofed house.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to.
I can't hear you, actually. I can't hear that at all.
It's wonderful.
Noise gate. So
wonderful. The noise gate must be working, and so I'm going to say shout out to Raphael Ludwig because I'm using his Power EQ AI audio processor real time.
Ooh.
Right now, and hopefully it's working some of this out. But you know, I'm monitoring it, and it sounds like there's someone behind me with a high-speed fan. So as people think about all this stuff and they want to get to know you a little bit more, your website, neilfarrimond.live, this is basically where people can start to come and get in touch with you and figure out more about what you're doing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've got a free, I call it a free, what's the word I use? A pre-keynote checklist. So it's just a free little workbook to go through, some pointers, what we spoke about today. You can download that for free. All I ask from you is an email address so I can send you more stuff and spam you in the next year and things like that. But you know, it's a free book that you can download. And if you don't know where to start, there's a little thing on my website where it talks you through a little questionnaire in terms of what help that you need. You know, you don't know where to start. It's the blue button on the bottom, and it just says, you know, click there and it'll talk you through some questions, or you can get the free, the credibility in the room, little guide, all free, and some tips and tricks that I put up there, a few bits of gear thrown in as well. So by all means, take advantage of that. And you can just book a 30-minute, no obligation chat with me just to think about what you might want to do. And if I'm not the right fit for you, that's fine. There are other people out there that can probably help you better, but at least we can have a conversation, maybe steer you on the right track. And, you know, I'm not a person that sells you gear. If you don't have anything, don't worry about it. Let's just start with what you want to do first.
I love that. And, you know, your Substack as well, which I subscribe to, I didn't even realize you were writing all that much. And so when I was going through my research, I was like, oh, it's Substack. And I started reading through your articles. There's amazing stuff here. And I'm a big fan immediately. I think your approach to things is always so balanced and thoughtful that, you know, if you happen to be one of these people that goes on Substack, which I've started to become a big fan of, that, you know, I would say stop by the Creator Cafe here and give Neil a subscribe, because it's really interesting stuff. And you're like a lot of us, we're learning this as we go, and we're on this kind of cutting edge of what's coming out and what's happening. And that feels really weird. And it's said without ego. It's just, we're running into this stuff probably before the rest of the masses just because of what we do. And I love your take on a lot of this, on AI, on audience, you know, everything. I think it's really well done. So keep it up. I love that. Neil, thank you for spending so much time with me today. This has been a ton of fun.
Pleasure.
And stick around for a minute. I'm going to wrap up here, and then I don't know. I guess I'll see you on office hours or somewhere. Are you going to be able to come to Creator Camp in a couple of weeks, or are you staying there in Portugal?
I'm staying in Portugal. I was in Creator Camp in the UK at the sort of beginning of the year, and that's my Creator Camp stint for this year. But never say never. Next year, maybe something like that. But are you going this year?
I am. Yeah. So after last year, I was all about like, all right, this is the conference that I'm going to go to for the rest of my life, for as long as Ecamp's in business. And like I said, it had such an impact on me from a professional standpoint, from a creative standpoint, from just a personal confidence standpoint. And my network went from an ecosystem of all photographers to now it exploded into this world of creativity that unfortunately I was ignorant to prior to Creator Camp. And now it just feels like home. It feels like family. So yeah, I'm actually speaking there this year, believe it or not. I'm doing 6 talks on interviewing and preparing for interviews and being able to do this, if you're just starting to do interviews or if you've been doing it a long time, how to just have some better conversations, how to ask some better questions. And, no expert, but, I spent some time doing this and figured it out. So I'm going to give people my tips. But yeah, I'll be there. It's like 30 days away. It's coming up really quickly.
I know, it's crazy. Where's the year gone?
Right?
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm going to miss that, but yeah, I'm sure people will love that. And that's a great technique as well, to be able to interview people. It's fantastic.
It's, and I'm not going to hawk my book now. I'll do it later on. So, all right, hang out for just a minute while I shut things down. And then, yeah, Neil, thank you so much. I will talk to you soon.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks so much. YouTube's got to put some stuff over here or over here. Watch those videos, subscribe to the channel. If you dug the interview, that's awesome. Please do me a favor and go check out Neil's pages, neilfarrimond.live as a starting point, or go to the Creator Cafe on Substack. I'm telling you, he's one of these guys that you just absolutely should follow. And if you have any desire to get online and start streaming, start a YouTube channel, just make your presence a little bit better. If you have to go into a Google Teams meeting and you don't want to be the big sweaty guy with no shirt on, then make sure that you talk to Neil about how to do this stuff better. Thanks again for joining me here on Generator. And if you like this, tell someone about it. All right. Thanks, guys. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you next time.